Hi everyone, I'm Katie, and there's a bit of a rumor going around that I joined a cult for this presentation. You may have heard that, and okay, so it's not true, but I just wanted to clear up a few things during this presentation and explain why that had to happen. So, over summer research, about a year ago, I was watching Gilmore Girls. Any fans in the audience? Okay, so just background, for those of you who don't know, there is a scene in which a few characters participate in an occult ritual at Yale, and they're part of a secret society called the Life and Death Brigade, and I thought, oh, is this an actual thing? And so I went on sort of a Wikipedia odyssey, as you do, and I found out that that secret society wasn't a real secret society, but it has its roots in Skull and Bones, which is a pretty famous secret society at Yale. Has anyone heard of that? Okay, so it's fairly well known. I did not know about it, and so I did some digging, and that became my jumping off point for this project. So this is Hippo Castle. It is at UNC, and it is the stronghold of the secret society of the Order of Gimghoul, which is a fraternal organization at UNC. This photo was taken in 2016, and as you can see here, we have two signs here that say private property, no trespassing, and private property, no trespassing also here. Next slide. So, this is another photo of the same stronghold, and so as you can see here, we have a very effective deterrent chain, which is this one block sort of chain, one wire chain that kind of stretches from this rock over here to this rock over here. So not a super effective method of deterring people if you don't actually want them to come to your super secret stronghold. Next slide. Okay, so this is a photo that I took at Wilson Library, the UNC archives, and this is Hippo Castle circa 1930 when it was first constructed. And then this sign over here says not open to public. So this seems a bit paradoxical. Why would a very secret society who purports to not want people to come and visit them have this very visible stronghold that everyone can see? And so this led me to the idea of the open secret. How is it constructed, and how is it used to maintain power not only on the college campus, but in all sorts of different contexts, especially in a fraternal context and the maintenance of white, straight, male power, the man, as it were. So next slide. Okay, so this method is not solely used by the Order of Gimghoul. You see it on all sorts of college campuses. So the Duke Trident Society is one example, and their calling card as they leave carnations at the base of a J.B. Duke statue on West Campus. There's the William and Mary Seven Society. That's okay. Yeah, the next one. There we go. And they have this sort of occult symbol that's all over campus. This one is at the Sunken Gardens. Okay, so why do secret societies do this, specifically secret societies on college campuses? A rough analogy for this is the panopticon. So the panopticon is a conception of a prison that is shaped kind of like a cylinder, and it has one surveillance tower in the middle, and then there's one surveillance guard that the prisoners can't see because the prisoners are all around here, and the surveillance guard can't watch everyone at one time, but you don't know when he's watching you. And this is the analogy for how power is constructed through ritual and geographic space on college campuses and by different kinds of secret societies. You don't know when you're being watched. So through the use of calling cards, through the use of symbolism that links them to a larger history of fraternal power, they hold this sort of power in the public consciousness. They dominate the public consciousness. Everyone knows they're there, but no one can see into them. Hippo Castle is a metaphor for this. Everyone can see it. Everyone knows it's there, but you're not allowed to talk about it. You can't see inside it. Okay, so let's dive into how this works sociologically and psychologically. And to understand that, we have to delve into the idea of conspiracy theory and imagined power So according to public policy polling in 2013, they did a study that showed that 28% of voters in the 2012 election believed that a secretive power elite with a globalist agenda was conspiring to eventually rule the world through an authoritarian world government or new world order. Okay, so this ties into the idea of the Illuminati. Who's heard of the Illuminati? Everyone! Okay, so let's dive into the actual history of the Illuminati and then how it's constructed in our society and then how it ties in to the popular conception of fraternal power. So we start with the Bavarian Illuminati, which was an actual Enlightenment-era organization founded by Adam Weishaupt, who is I call him a man proudly displaying his third-place medal in a Mozart cosplay competition. So next slide. Thank you. So members included all sorts of thinkers of the era, and they kind of banded together to combat the church power because there was very little separation of church and state until all fraternal organizations, including the Illuminati and the Freemasons, were outlawed by the Bavarian monarch Charles Theodore in 1784, and the Illuminati disbanded. Okay, fast forward to 1960s America, where we have the counterculture movement. And so, this text is the Principia Discordia, and it is amazing. I'll tell you about it. Okay, so it is a fake religious text published by Greg Hill, who called himself Malaclips the Younger, and Harry Wendell Thornley, Lord Omar Khayyam Ravenhurst. And they published this text to challenge the idea, they published this text to challenge how information was presented. The idea of publishing this text was an absurdist and ironic response to the power structures of the day. They wanted everyone to see this parody religious text that created a parody religion called Discordianism, and then question how information around them was presented to them. So this didn't exactly go as they planned, because people read this text and they adopted it as an actual religion. And so I just want to share with you this quote, which is now one of my favorite quotes of all time. If organized religion is the opium of the masses, then disorganized religion is the marijuana of the lunatic fringe. That is a direct quote from the Principia Discordia, and I just wanted to share that to show sort of the flavor of the text itself. Okay, so this text, the Principia Discordia, inspired the Illuminatist trilogy, which is a trilogy of novels that kind of created this mystique around the Illuminati that we have today. It really brought the idea of the Illuminati, which by this point did not exist anymore, into the popular consciousness. Okay, so a 2014 study from the University of Chicago showed that over 50% of Americans believe in at least one conspiracy theory. So this shows the American penchant for conspiracy theory. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then the hashtag Illuminati confirmed also highlights this penchant for conspiracy theory, but was then sort of reappropriated by a different faction that parodies the American penchant for conspiracy theory. So this parody is the way that the Principia Discordia was actually meant to be used. And so it's a profound irony that the text highlighting the absurdity of the social order was appropriated by a faction that adopted it as an actual religion and seeks to enforce that order. How does this relate to secret college societies? Well, like many secret organizations, they exploit the American culture of conspiracy, what journalist Christopher Hitchens calls the exhaust fumes of democracy. So we're going to explore two ways in which secret college societies and different fraternal organizations exploit that penchant through ritual space and geographic space. Okay, geographic space. I went on to Google Maps to explore some of the different ways in which geographic space is constructed. So I did this on November 3rd, 2017. If you went to Google Maps and you typed in GIM, then Gimble Castle which is Hippo Castle, which we saw in the first few slides, was returned as the first result, and it presented all of this information for us. Okay, so next slide. By contrast, if you go onto the UNC official interactive map, which I also did in November, this is Gimble Castle as it is depicted on the official UNC map. So this highlights the question, what sorts of ties are there between secret societies and their universities of origin? So, fun fact, before we get any further, I actually went on to Google Maps again today and searched for Gimble, and nothing came up. So I'm a student of statistics, and I know that correlation is not causation, but I kept a blog of my research for this project. Some of you may have read it. And I am going to UNC next year, and because I'm not smart, I sent them a link to my blog when I interviewed there. So that happened. I don't know if there is a correlation between those two things, but there is the possibility that they saw some of the information I presented here and then perhaps responded to that in some way. Who knows? Okay, yeah, so that was today. I went on, I typed in Gimble, and then nothing returned. So all of that information that was previously there in November was gone. Who knows why? Okay, and this isn't only for Gimble, it goes for Yale's Skull and Bones and Scroll and Key, Cornell's Quill and Dagger, William & Mary Seven Society. So we're going to skip forward a bit. They're conspicuously absent from the official narrative of the university history. So because we only have a little bit of time left, we're going to skip forward. Okay, so this idea of ritual fraternity responds to a feminized public space. Okay, it responds to especially an antebellum and also like immediately postbellum influx of women into the college campus. So people saw that women were coming onto the college campuses, they were becoming co-ed, and then there was a rise in fraternal organizations that responded to that. We're gonna keep going, we're gonna keep going, we're gonna keep going. Okay, so there's also a racial codification of female political action in these secret societies and in their symbolism. And this ties into the Silent Sam statue on the UNC campus. And in his dedication of the statue in 1913, Julian Carr said, "The war between the states was fought really by the women who stayed home," and this exemplifies his doctrine, his belief, and the belief of these societies, because he was part of one of the societies at UNC, I don't remember which one it was, that femininity equals white femininity, and therefore serves to keep white masculinity in power by placing it spatially and ritually out of the increasingly feminized college campus. We're gonna keep going. Oh, okay, this is just a fun thing. It's not fun, but you'll see. So, we're gonna go back. Okay, so this is North Carolina Baptist minister and man perhaps judging you for taking the last carton of cashew milk in the dairy aisle, Thomas Dixon Jr. And immediately after the Enforcement Acts of 1870 and 1871, he published a novel, The Klansman, a historical romance of the Ku Klux Klan, that sort of reignited racial tensions in the South. Going. It was turned into The Birth of a Nation, by the way, a 1915 film. And then that novel and The Birth of a Nation, that film, served to tie the Klan into a long imagined narrative of romantic chivalry and resistance to the state, which is the narrative that the symbolism of college secret societies also ties into. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. Okay, so we only have a bit of time, so let's wrap this up really quickly. I know that was a lot. I didn't time this correctly. Okay, yeah. So all of this serves to show that college secret societies use symbolism, all sorts of different kinds of symbolism, to tie themselves into a narrative of a romantic resistance of imagined fraternity, which is imagined through the concept of chivalry, through the concept of King Arthur, through the concept of the Klan, through the concept of all of these different kinds of white fraternal organizations that serve to not only spatially isolate them but also ritually isolate them. And in that way, they construct an open secret. Everyone can see them, but no one can touch them. And Hipple Castle serves as a metaphor for this isolation. So everyone can see it, but no one can enter it. And they want you to know that you can't enter it by presenting it to us in all of these different contexts, but making it perfectly clear that it is spatially and ritually isolated. Okay. Questions?
I just wonder if you have any hopes of interviewing, a member of the society at UNC.
That would be.
Anyone would talk.
I haven't tried.
See, I think that would be fascinating.
I should. Yeah, that would be easier to do next year because I'll be there.
I don't know if they will.
So no. Oh, fun fact! I forgot. Do we have time? We have time. It's question time. So fun story about how I obtained that picture of the 1930s Hipple Castle. That was like way at the beginning of the slides. So I was in Wilson Library. And I was in the archives, and I walked into the research librarian. This was like the day after I had seen the Gilmore Girls episode. And I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to research secret societies. And I found one at UNC. And so I didn't know that this secret society, it was the Golden Fleece one, it was the Golden Fleece, was all male. And so I walked up to the research librarian, and I had previously requested all of this like huge stack of documents online because they have like this online request feature. And then if the documents are unavailable or they're only accessible to certain people, they mark them as unavailable or restricted. And then these documents were not marked as restricted. They were marked as available to anyone. So I requested them, and I walked up to the librarian in Wilson Library, and I said, hi, I requested the Golden Fleece documents, and he said, are you a member? And then I said, yes. And he said, are you really? And I said, of course I am. He said, okay. So what I'm gonna do is, I don't think that you're actually a member, because I didn't know this all now. And this was like poor planning on my part. I don't know what I'm doing ever. And so he said, I'm gonna give you the documents from 50 years back so that they don't contain any of the current rosters, because he didn't want me looking at the current rosters. And so he gave me the documents from 50 years back. I said thank you, and I got enough to do this presentation. And as a jumping off point for more of my investigation in that my paper and my blog explore, which are largely the financial ties between these societies and the university's origin, a lot of the symbolism that I didn't mention in this presentation. And so I went through the photos, and then I was going through the membership rosters from a long time ago, and a lot of the photos, and I was like, oh look, this one's all male. Oh look, this one is too. And then I kind of had this realization of, oh, so this is what this is all about. But that led me to understanding more deeply the metaphor of Hipple Castle and of all the symbolism of fraternal organizations, because those documents were not marked as restricted. They were marked as available to the public. Everyone could see them. I was allowed to request them, but I wasn't allowed to look at them.
All right, you can keep answering questions, but I just have to open the
Okay, yeah. Any more questions? Come on.
Okay, so do you know, I have two questions, sorry. Do you know how someone would go about joining one of these societies? And also, do you know how many of these societies are predominantly male or only male? And if any of them let a female enter the society, and how many of them are predominantly white people?
Yes. Okay. So there were sort of three questions in there. I'll go in order.
Sorry.
So the first one, I got you. So the first one was, how do you join one of these secret societies? The short answer is, I have no idea, because I'm not allowed to be in any of them. And I'm not allowed to, know. And I don't suppose a lot of us are, unless you're in them. So, but from my understanding, there's normally a hazing ritual that functions like a fraternity, essentially, like it's a secret fraternity. And it's usually a hazing ritual that is in some way connected with the symbolism, the specific symbolism of that organization. So I read about some of them that I'm not going to bring up here because I just ate. And I don't, yeah. So there's usually some kind of violent or in some way, usually sexual hazing process that takes place in order to join this organization, and you don't know what it is beforehand. You are tapped for this organization, so they say, "You're a rich white male of good breeding, come, join our organization," and then they like dump you into a lake or do something worse. Second one was, are any of these organizations female? Are you allowed to join any of these organizations if you are female? The answer is now, some of them, yes. Quill and Dagger, I believe, is Cornell's one. And that's generally considered the most progressive society in that they were the first to let females in. In the beginning, you weren't allowed to be anything but white. You weren't allowed to be anything but male. But now there are more and more, the organizations are letting all kinds of different people in, but it's still dominated by rich white men. That's kind of the idea of it, but especially with the advent of the internet age and the dissemination of information about these societies that allows us to do presentations like this, they're losing their power, and the importance